another tattoo. You can't even see it, and it makes no difference. You wouldn't even know what happened to him when you send him back to Oregon.
This will probably bring some closure to the family of the girl he killed, Angela Sabriz, an Oklahoma girl. Is that a legitimate reason to prosecute someone? I mean, should the state be advocating for the victims?
Well, there's certainly something to be said for allowing victims to have closure, but that's not why the state of Wyoming prosecuted Mr. Jesperson. They prosecuted him because he killed a girl here, he confessed to it, he bragged about it, and that's why they prosecuted him, plain and simple.
I think it does bring closure. I do think it brings closure. It isn't going to bring her back to her family. It wouldn't change my mind about anything, that just the fact that they brought him here and he pled guilty to it. If I was the father or the brother of that woman, I would still carry whatever it is I'm carrying. But the fact of this whole matter with Jesperson is that it's like anything. It's timing. What was the reason for the timing to do any of this? Nobody was in it. There wasn't anybody going anywhere. There wasn't anybody in any jeopardy at this point in time. And so I just question the timing. I agree with Frank. Somebody kills somebody in this state and commits an evil crime like that, they should be dealt with and dealt with harshly by the law if they're convicted. But here again, once again, it's timing. There's just certain things that we seem to do in this state that confound me in terms of timing.
I wonder, from the media point of view, how much culpability we have in the overall thing. Not the killings, not the deaths, not the murders, but in making this guy an anti-hero and an underground star, the happy-faced killer. Well, I'm guilty of it myself.
He did some of that to himself, though. You know, if he'd have just kept shut, if he'd have followed his attorney's advice when he first got arrested on his first murder out there, none of this would have happened to him. He put himself through this. He brought it on himself. I think that the media over-reports some of these things, but this guy went to extremes. You know, he opened up a site on the internet where he could brag about these atrocious crimes that he's committed, and he rubbed it in people's face. And you know, I think it was time to snuff the happy-face killer, and even though Wyoming didn't put him to death, I think that we took that smile right off his face.
You know, the truth is, though, Frank, because of all of the media coverage and I'm not condemning the media for this, but because of the media coverage, because of the various statements that he's made, if he is indeed this serial killer, there are people like Frank who believe those people should be given the death penalty, but guess what he did? He won. He didn't get the death penalty. All this discussion we've had over these months and getting the death penalty and all of that, this guy is not stupid. Well, all of the mechanisms that he has put in place, he won. He got himself off the hook, and can't everybody see that?
So you think he is getting the last laugh here?
He has to be getting the last laugh. He says he's killed all these women. He had Casey Smith played some tape where he claimed he killed over 100 people. And if he's done that, guess what? He's pretty bad. But he isn't getting the death penalty.
Not in Wyoming and not in Oregon.
And so here's the point. By doing what he's done, he's won, and he has avoided the death penalty.
What can we learn as a society and for people in law enforcement from studying a person like this, a self-admitted serial killer?
Well, I'm not sure that you can learn much except that evil lurks out there and to watch over your children.
Well, these people need to be stopped. They need to be stopped, and they need to be taken out of society in ways that they will not harm anyone else ever again.
And that's what the death penalty's for.
And I'm against the death penalty. I just don't think, I think that our system is so imperfect that it makes enough mistakes as it is that to use it to kill people is not the best idea in mind.
Well, for confessed serial murders, though, it's a perfect punishment.
But there are people who confess that didn't do anything.
Keith Jesperson wasn't one of them.
Well, I don't know that at this point in time.
Let's move along to the Monica Lewinsky case. This is something that I just want to wash my hands of.
Who's she?
This whole thing. Yeah. The presidency right now is in a state of disrepair, I think probably would be a good way to put it, but people still love the president. Monica Lewinsky has dumped her old attorney and has hired some real fancy Washington mouthpieces here, if you will, to represent her. Your guys' perspective, does this signal a complete change? She has been pretty, if not supportive of the president, at least not damaging to him. Well, is she going to hang him out to dry at this point?
She needed to change lawyers. You see, lawyers are like doctors. You don't go to a...
I thought you were going to say like saw.
No, you don't go to a dentist and get brain surgery, see. So there are lawyers who do different kinds of work. You don't go to a tax lawyer to defend yourself in a first-degree murder case. And so it's like anything. You need to find a specialist, someone who has handled these kind of cases, knows the system, has done them before, has a track record, and you can ask him, gee, you know, if you were charged with first-degree murder and you go into a guy and say, now, I'd like you to represent me in this first-degree murder case, have you ever done that? He says, well, no, you'd be my first one. It's like anything else. Do you want to be that person? And what Monica Lewinsky hired was a medical malpractice lawyer.
Well, and I want to talk about that a bit, because I've always
I think she was smart in getting new lawyers.
I've always taken the position that unlike doctors, lawyers are like plumbers. And if you like the way they fix your pipes, stick with them. And if you don't, fire them and get another plumber. And I think that that's where the Lewinskys came to eventually. Mr. Ginsburg was a friend and apparently a former lawyer for Miss Lewinsky's father. He employed on her behalf, and by the way, this fellow is still working for her in Washington with her two new lawyers, a lawyer who's never lost a jury trial. He's like Wyoming's own Jerry Spence. And he's never lost a jury trial.
A criminal jury trial?
In Washington, D.C. Now, he's still there. That's why people are saying now that Mr. Starr is taking his grand jury into Virginia, because he doesn't want to face that lawyer there in Washington, D.C. that's with the old legal team. The reason Monica Lewinsky fired her lawyer and Mr. Ginsburg and needed to get a new one is because the pressure in the pressure cooker was up pretty high, and his relationship with the prosecutor was such that they could not and would not communicate with an eye where Mr. Ginsburg could effectively represent Miss Lewinsky to the prosecutor and to the grand jury.
Frank, he was doing goofy things, though.
She needs to cut some kind of a deal, and I agree Ginsburg did some inappropriate things.
Goofy.
I think he was just trying to keep up with Mr. Starr and his crew.
Well, he writes a letter to Mr. Starr saying, congratulations, you've uncovered a consensual sexual act between two adults. I mean, in a way, that's admitting that his client lied on the affidavit where she said, I didn't do that. I've never seen anything like that in a long time other than by, I call it goofyism. That's the best I can put on it.
A lot of shouting heads out there on TV right now are saying that he committed malpractice by sending that letter.
Well, I don't know that, but it's goofy.
I think that now, with this series of events that have gone on this week between the court rulings against the president's claims of privilege and Miss Lewinsky's hiring a new set of lawyers, that the worm has turned on the president, and that the longer he continues to keep quiet, the longer he continues to try to hide things and keep his head in the sand, the worse it's going to be. There's been a groundswell of support for the notion that sex and lying about sex, perhaps that's an honorable lie, shouldn't be grounds for impeachment or criminal prosecution. But it's the cover-up that's gotten people in Washington in trouble. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of the people around the president now face indictment for obstruction of justice or trying to get Monica Lewinsky and others to lie.
We'll be back to continue this discussion in just a moment here on Report to Wyoming. Talking about the events in Washington, D.C. this week with our legal team here on Report to Wyoming. Dallas, your take right now on Monica Lewinsky getting new lawyers, and what does this mean? Is she going to be able to get immunity now? Is she going to hang the president out? Should the president be hung out? Lots of questions.
I think Monica Lewinsky should be given immunity, and I don't think Monica Lewinsky has done, I mean, how is it that she's really done anything wrong? Yes, they're saying various things about obstruction of justice and all that, but if she had the affair with the president, she's a consenting adult. The president is in a little different position, but you know, the point of it all is that when you bring sex into a courtroom, people get pretty strange. Now, sex is something that perpetuates our entire society, and it's in all of the advertising that you see on TV, and it's in people's minds. And now, if they criminalize sex in the way that they're doing it now,
And lying about sex.
there's going to be a lot of new penitentiaries that need to be built. The truth of this is that this is a political action to get the presidency back into the Republican Party. We're talking trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. And when one party has control and the other party wants control and the other party's had control for years, and they can see all of this huge, vast sums of money being controlled, they want it back. Now, the way to get Clinton, you couldn't get him in an election. So the way to get him is with sex. Now, if he truly is a sex addict or he has sexual problems, then if they want to make it criminal, they're going to get him. Now, you get a little girl like Monica Lewinsky, she didn't do anything to anybody. She hasn't asked for all this trouble. She should have had immunity a long time ago and been brought in and taken, and her testimony under oath taken and dealt with, period.
And that should have gone on months ago. You know, the only good news for the president right now is that obviously there's nothing to Whitewater and nothing to any of these other investigations that Mr. Starr has going on. He's now putting all of his time, all of his resources, and all of his energy into this sex investigation. He's given up on all the stuff that cost $48 or $50 million now to investigate over the last 4 years, and he's down to the last straw.
And guess who's paying for the party? You are, and I am, and the two camera people, and all you folks out there. You're paying for this little deal, and I'm guessing you're not happy with it either.
Let's move this up a step then. Has the special prosecutor system and the way it is set up right now impaired a president's ability to govern?
They're going to get rid of that. As soon as the Republicans gain control of the White House, the Republican Congress is going to get rid of the independent counsel because they don't want the Democrats to take that and go whomp their president with it and whomp their people with it, which is exactly what happened. The Democrats used the independent counsel to whomp Bush and Reagan, and it got them the presidency over the Iran-Contra problem.
I think it's out of control. There's no one that controls the independent counsel. In this instance, he's not independent, and that's what's ruined the statute. There's no independence in Ken Starr's office. He's a Republican. He's proud of it. He's going after the president, and he's proud of it. You know, many of the other people who were nominated and served as independent counsels were truly independent. They spent their money on a narrow set of issues that they were appointed to look at, and when they found criminal conduct, they indicted for it. When they didn't, they reported it. Mr. Starr will not give up. He's going to go until he gets Mr. Clinton.
Well, and that's what he's being paid to do. He's a lawyer. He's been paid $60 million so far to get Clinton, and that's what he's going to do. He's going to go get Clinton for the $60 million that he's been paid. And guess where he gets the $60 million, folks? He gets it from us, the taxpayer. And us, the taxpayer, are not involved in wanting him to do it at this point in time. It's interfering with our government.
I think if he were truly independent and he were focusing narrowly on truly criminal conduct, the money would be well spent. But under these circumstances, it's clearly not.
I agree.
Let's move to another case. Horrendous crime down in Boulder, Colorado, 18 months ago now, a year and a half ago. It's hard to believe it's been that long. Young girl, JonBenet Ramsey, killed. Still no arrest in that case. A lot of controversy. It has been on Geraldo. It has been on all of the news, the tabloid magazines and everything else. A big meeting this week. It looks like apparently the DA down there may be getting close to going to a grand jury with this case and seeking an indictment. Gentlemen, your take on this?
Well, actually, I'm not sure that the DA is ready to go to a grand jury and ask for indictments. It's the police department down there who wants the DA to go to a grand jury, and I think the DA is resisting. I see, at least through the news and through the media, that there are some differences about whether all of the investigation that can be done has been done, and obviously there were some parts of the early investigation that were bungled. Most of these cases, if they're not solved within the first 48 hours, never get solved, and that's a big problem, not just for the DA, but I think the police department down there has a hot potato, and they want to throw it behind closed doors and let the DA handle it, and then if something doesn't come out of it, they can always say, we did everything we could do, and it was up to the DA to issue an indictment.
You know, the interesting thing that you said there, Frank, that I agree with you on is that the initial investigation was bungled. Do you know why it was bungled? It's a classic example. These people were rich, so the police, when they first arrived, wouldn't have believed that, that the family could have been involved in this terrible crime. That's why it got bungled. The police went in with a mindset, here's this big house, we know these people, they're rich, they wouldn't do anything like this. And that's how, the mindset is how that got bungled. We have several friends in Boulder, and of course the Boulder people all have a certain viewpoint of who they believe did it, and they believe it was someone within the family that did it and someone within the family that's covering it up. But due to standing and social class and money, they're all accusing the police of having that in their forefront of their minds, and that's what caused it to be bungled. If it had been someone else, they would have gone in with a full-force investigation and probably have this matter solved by now.
Well, there's a clear protocol and procedure for what the police are supposed to do when they go into a situation where there's been a homicide or there's a death, whether they think it's a homicide or not. The first thing is to close off the area, tape it off, and bring in people who are trained to go through the entire area with evidence technicians and pick up material. We heard about it ad nauseum in the O.J. Simpson case. You think about the way they closed things down there, and still they had police officers walking through the crime scene, contaminating it. In this instance, I think Dallas is absolutely right. There is a certain privilege that the rich have that others do not. When the police show up, when the district attorney shows up, when the IRS shows up, or when the FBI shows up, they get treated differently as a result of class and privilege. In this instance, this was not just a big house, it was a mansion. And it just wasn't handled correctly by the police. Now they want to pass it off to the DA and tell the DA to do whatever he can with it. And I think that's a tough spot to